Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.
Well, I think that photography it carries different meanings based on what you're using it for and the message that you're trying to convey. It could very much be an artistic expression. It can be a creative expression where you're sharing about yourself and your perspectives through the visual medium. But in my life, more often than not, photography is data, it's information. It's recording a log of, what happened at that exact moment in real life that, sure can be altered to some degree, but for the most part, it's just a reliable and, important piece of information that we can use for the future.
Hello world, this is exciting. This is the launch of Project Green Screen. Now, I've been trying to make Shooting It Raw explode and blow up, and I've had amazing guests. But now, I'm pushing it on to you. So I'm leaving it open to you. Just leave a comment somewhere, either on YouTube, on Facebook. What else? There's Instagram. There's coconuts on the beach. Just leave a note anywhere saying, well, why don't you talk to this person? And I will do the work of reaching out. Project Green Screen. So when I find a new name, I will add that name to the green screen and then I'll talk to them. Now, does that mean I'll be using a green screen? No, because this is audio. It's a podcast. So there's no video, no green screen. But I like the idea of having a big old green screen that I start writing down the names of people who are going to be on the podcast. Maybe it'll work. Maybe I'll add Kevin Hart. Yeah. So leave a comment, leave who you'd like me to talk to. I'll add it to the green screen, and who knows, someday maybe I'll get them to talk to me on Shooting It Raw. Thanks, and have a happy new year. Samantha, Sam, perfect. That's great. As we have our conversation, you may hear a really pained, mournful cry, like, oh. It's not a person, it's a cow. So I have cows that live around the village, and it's probably a mom just calling out to her calf.
I'm a big animal lover, so the more animal noises come out in the background, the more comfortable I'll be.
Okay, good. I see we're okay. So, so Samantha Joule Fow. That's right. How do you say your name properly?
Yes. Yeah. No, you got it exact right. Jewel like a gem, fow like wow.
Okay. I'm just super curious about everything. What? Where? I've never seen a name like that. Like, is it French originally or what?
Well, it was more or less a product of a bunch of people changing their minds about things, right? So the last name Fow, from what I have been told, it's very uncommon. It's not something you see every day.
Yeah.
But I was told by my family it was like Dutch.
Okay.
And there were immigrants many, many generations ago, and they changed it from the Dutch spelling to an Americanized spelling. And so it's kind of like, it was just some. And then Jewel, it was just something that my mother picked, but she wanted it to be spelled like the unit of energy,
exactly.
Right? Joule, instead of so like kind of like a nod to like kind of like science and technology.
Your mom sounds awesome.
She's super awesome. And when I asked her where the name Samantha came from, she said, well, I don't know. It was around your due date, and it was either going to be Amanda or Samantha. Okay. And I just picked one. I said, okay.
That's nice.
I'm glad you picked it.
It's nice. It's nice.
Yeah. And especially now that I do so much content creation, it's definitely a good, like it has like a nice ring to it.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like,
you're hired.
Right? Exactly. Thank you.
Is it okay if I call you Sam?
Please do.
Okay, so we have never met before, and I love I love this, where I kind of sit back and I think to myself, who out there in the world of the world would I want to talk to that seems interesting? And I don't even remember how maybe it relates to a book with your name on it.
Yes.
Yes. There we go.
Mhm.
Good yell. Yes.
It was a really big project. I worked really hard on it. So now that whenever people recognize it
It's your
or come
baby.
across it, it's my passion project. It's my legacy.
Nice.
And it means a lot to me. And I'm obviously really passionate about it. And so just like, anyone who has a passion, whenever there's anyone out there who, sees you and recognizes you for it, it's very exciting.
Yeah. Oh, it's wicked. I love your energy. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
So we're going to dive in through your photographs, get to know you, share. Okay. So the podcast, in case you haven't checked it out or whatever, is really, it's framed around photography, right? Because everybody's got photos. And that curates the conversation so that it moves along pretty quickly. And we see how you make sense of the world, what's interesting to you, what's important to you. And then you'll notice the hour goes by super fast, and hopefully this way will inspire other people to kind of go, hey, wait a minute, that's interesting. And then who knows where they go, but that's basic. So, the main question we're going to try to answer is, if life really is a gift, how do we make every second count? You're in?
I'm in.
Awesome. Okay, so I don't look at the photographs beforehand until I speak with the person, and I'm bringing it up. And okay, so
what's the first one?
It's perfect. It's yummy. It's it's so good. Okay, so usually what I do is I describe it because it's a podcast about photographs.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that's you because it's in the bright noonday sun, leaning on some beautiful rock. There is nothing green around you. So in the background is like rock face. I mean, is that sandstone or is that
Yeah. So what you are looking at is a small piece of the beautiful landscape of Moab, Utah, which is one of my all-time favorite locations and sort of a temporary transient residence for me during the time of my life where I was living nomadic. That is one of the ways that I started my career / life as a content creator. I had, sort of a really challenging situation. Like after graduate school, I got married and it turned out to be a really terrible situation, like domestic violence and all sorts of things. And I found myself, it was really like, a super massive disruption. And so instead of just carrying on in the same old manner that I had in the past, where it's like, okay, you go to work, you go to school, you try to make the things work, I just essentially broke all of those paradigms and I hit the road, right? It was me and a Jeep and a German Shepherd and a laptop. The German Shepherd shows up later in the photographic story because she's still around, right? She's a beautiful senior lady of 12 years old. But this is actually just from this year, returning to Moab, kind of going full circle, because it's just a place where any and all gypsies and travelers are welcome. And when I was a gypsy traveler, I always felt very welcome.
So you are okay. So just for the listener, okay. So the background is just some beautiful rock, essentially going up to the top of the frame, and it's like you're standing on a hill. It's a very strange composition in the sense that you're standing on what looks like polished rock that's quite bright and almost cream colored. And in the background is probably the same rock that's in a kind of shadow that's a lot redder. And so if somebody's seen images of Moab, they'll know a lot of what that stone is like. You're dressed like such a gypsy. It's crazy. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
You've got a sports bra on. You've got like tights for what looks like rock climbing or jogging, and you've got like those aren't rock climbing shoes. So Moab is for rock climbing.
No, those are trail runners, but
yeah. So Moab is known for rock climbing and for cycling for sure. Uh,
Yes, I do. That's one of the things that I definitely got into when I was there. It's something I've carried on with me through my adventures. And now, as I settle down into Colorado, I do a lot of rock climbing. And that really does allow you to see all of, you really get deep into the mountains, deep into the wilderness, and you get to see how diverse nature really
sure,
is. And
sure,
that's something that I tried to represent. Sort of like, in my photographs, that like the beauty of nature exists in many different ways,
for
right?
sure.
And also, that just because something isn't green, right, doesn't
There's
necessarily mean that
literally
it's not
nothing green in
a
this
very
photo.
yeah, yeah, and it's also just ecologically a very important place.
Yep,
That is right near what is known as the Slick Rock area
yep.
in a Moab State Park, and it is famous for essentially little micro ecosystems that emerge in the rocks
Mm-hmm.
as it rains, and they collect little puddles. Each of those little puddles turns into a little pond with
Yep.
its own like plants and animals and all different things, and
Super
that's able to
fast.
support life.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so a lot of people, they see the desert and they think, oh, it's bare and it's desolate and it's empty. And honestly, nothing could be further from the truth. It's very
Uh-huh.
alive.
Okay. Oh, Sam, I love it. I love it. Okay, so how, okay, so of all the library and potential places to start, you picked this one. Why launch your narrative or your, call this a biographical review or a presentation of what's important for you, important ideas, important themes, whatever it is. Why start with this image that shows you in an inhospitable place, looking totally alive, looking happy, looking a little sunburnt, but yeah. So what? Why start there?
Well, I think everyone could empathize with the idea of different phases of our lives. And many of us, different phases of our lives are connected to different locations.
Sure. Okay.
Um, and so for me, this phase of my life really did start in Moab. And, as you observed, it looks inhospitable, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it looks rough and challenging and difficult. And during that phase of my life, yeah, it was rough and it was challenging and it was difficult, but still it was just so rich and so beautiful and so free. And I think that those things are both represented here, right? Like, yes, it looks like a very harsh environment. Yes, I am sunburned, but it's still, I'm having an amazing time, because just because you might be physically uncomfortable in your surroundings doesn't necessarily mean that you're not exactly where you need to be.
Oh, for sure. So where did you? So usually, if you're traveling, gypsying, moving around, you're going from someplace. So where were you? Where were you before you got to Moab?
I lived in Vermont for
Oh
several
wow.
years. That's
Okay.
where I got my law degree and my master's in energy regulation and my master's of laws in environmental law.
Kick
So that's really
ass.
where I know. Yeah, it was a long list. A couple of them were through like research fellowships and things where like, it came with like kind of tuition opportunities and whatever. But yeah, that's, that the New England chapter was its own chapter.
Sure.
And there are certainly photographs that periodically appear in my feed from that time
Okay.
in my life. But it just seemed, even though it wasn't terribly long ago, because it was an entirely different chapter, an entirely different phase,
Yeah.
there isn't that same amount of attachment.
Right.
Right. It's like it doesn't have that same. I've been back to Vermont. I have visited friends there and been to places that were meaningful to me, but it still doesn't hold my heart and capture my
Right.
heart like the places that now feel
Yeah.
like home.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so did you move to Vermont from, like, is that where you're born? Like, were you born Northeast? Like, where?
I was born actually in San Diego,
Oh,
California,
wow.
and then I
Okay.
moved to Florida when I was very young, and that's where I was raised. I kind
Oh,
of had like a, slow beach surfer bum kind of
wow.
teenage life, and yeah, did really well in school. Always loved the outdoors,
Yeah.
loved being outside, loved plants and animals, and
Ended up
that's
in
really what
law.
led me to, huh?
Ended up in environmental law.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I did not go to law school with ever any intention of practicing or litigating.
Right.
I really just always felt, from what I learned about my first degree is in economics, right? Like my
Okay.
bachelor's in economics. And there's just certain things that must be done to prevent harm to people from natural transactions, right? And one of those things is that we do absolutely, absolutely, absolutely have to keep our economy accountable for pollution,
Yep.
climate change, all of the poor waste management that happens. This is a natural consequence of the way that we've chosen to structure our society. And it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just that's really where I saw my passion fits, right?
Yeah.
I care deeply. I love to sit in nature. I
Yep.
love to be outdoors. I love to be with animals. And how do I make that like my contribution to the world? Well, I do what I can to, sort of fill the gaps where the things that we do may not be so great for the environment.
This is food. For me, this is like a nourishing meal. This is great. In terms of the podcast that for some background, there are four kind of emerging themes. One of them is creative expression. So I get a lot of photographers and artists. One of them is conservation, because I'm a big conservationist and I'm connected to a lot of conservation people. One of them is service leadership, which is so, for example, in a school, in a law firm, in a family, the connection between people is what we call service, right? Like service isn't customer service in our minds. In our minds, service is just the connection between people. Like right now, you're giving me a service as a inspiring, brilliant guest on my podcast, and I'm giving you a service of hopefully being a good, engaging host or whatever.
Mhm.
So service leadership is a big something I've spent about 15 years on. And one of them is strong women. So you seem to fit the bill on many of the pillars. And I see that you're you suffer from being a massive underachiever.
I hear that a lot,
I'm sure you do. I like it. I like it when you're laughing and I can see your tonsils. Then I know I said something kind of funny. Nice.
Yeah, the real,
I love it.
the authentic cackle,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. I joke that I can't stop myself, and it's one of the things that I find myself saying often is that, if you love what you do, then you never work a day in your life. And
Right.
that's just something that I constantly reiterate to people, because I did start my career off as a young 20-something believing that it was putting one foot in front of the other so you climb the ladder to get to where you want to be. And
Right.
that's not my experience at all. My experience has been putting one foot in front of the other and following your passion and being true to yourself. And then you excel in that space.
Okay.
Right. People ask me all the time, like, why did you write this book? And I said, well, a lot of reasons. But fundamentally, it's because I care deeply about the environment,
Mm-hmm.
and I am a perpetual, sometimes obnoxious optimist. And I do truly believe that, armed with the same knowledge that I've had the opportunity to get through graduate school and through content creation contracts with tech companies and all these different things, that armed with that same knowledge and information, everyone can have a positive impact on the environment. And we can all together, through that service leadership orientation, right, work together
Yeah.
to make a better life for all of us.
Sure.
Right. And it's, it's super non-controversial, right? And nobody loves litter.
No, of
People
course.
do not like polluted water.
Right.
It's deeply upsetting. It's not necessarily, people disagree on what and how and who, should fix it, but nobody disagrees that it should be fixed. Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm very far away from you at the moment. So I live in a country park with, at the moment, we have 4 dogs and 5 cats in the house. The country park is in Hong Kong. And I don't know if you've been to Asia, but super green, super amazing. And it's a difficult problem in a way. Not a problem. It's a hard problem that, for example, Hong Kong is so dense with people and is so full on capitalist oriented, right? And people trying to make money and all this stuff. But one huge blind spot people in our city, in this city has, is it's improving, but when you say, oh yeah, people don't want pollution in their water and they don't want, people don't want to see litter outside their door or whatever. And yet, I agree with you completely. And yet the reality is, like, around me are people who just chuck their garbage out the window and they don't even think about it. And that's an education and awareness. So yeah, so I'm with you 100%, but I'm also a tireless optimist as well.
Yeah, because, just to your point, is the problem that they are chucking their garbage out the window and not thinking about it? Or is the problem that they have not been provided with the infrastructure they need to manage their waste effectively, right? And the awareness that they need to know, hey, like, this is what you do with it instead.
How dare you turn it around and with a really intelligent question? You're gonna expect me to respond to that? Jeez. Okay.
Well, there's actually a funny, a bit of an anecdote about the same thing that happened, here in the United States. So the United States really became a disposal forward culture after World War II. That's when the plastic industry really started making affirmative moves to literally sell you every product wrapped in plastic, right? It's wrapped in garbage. The first thing you have to do whenever you open anything is throw something away, right? And that was done intentionally. Back the pre-World War eras, things were reusable.
Sure.
Diapers were washed and reused. Linen services came around and helped people with that. Milk, the milk was delivered. Every soda and every beer was sold in a refundable container. And we're just right now returning to that reusable culture because there was an intentional period of time where we were taught to throw things away.
Right.
We were shown, no. Don't reuse that milk bottle, buy it in a plastic jug and then throw that away, right? And so just as we have had to be trained away from reusing things to throwing things away, people again have to be trained back from throwing things away to reusing things, right? It's doable.
I'm sighing because I am really enjoying this conversation. Let's move on to the next photo. Wait. Before I don't want it to get lost. What's the title of your book? So we have to plug it.
Yes, plug the book. Please buy my book. It's self-published. It was all bootstrapped. It's called Be Decent: Environmental Activism 2.0. Be Decent is a play on words about decentralized technology. Okay. It's really about how, because as your point, original point, we have a camera on every single phone. We can use that to capture information, whether it's about wildlife, whether it's about invasive species, whether that's about litter. Right. And just through participating in apps, through sharing on social media, we can make a really super positive environmental change.
Now, this is sorry, go ahead.
My mother has a really interesting anecdote. Just as I was telling her, about the book, some time ago, and she was like, "Oh, she lives down in Florida, where I'm from originally, and one of her commutes brings her right past a state park." And somebody at some point had dumped 16 bags of trash along the highway to the state park.
Sure.
And she saw, there was such an uproar on social media. So many people stopped and took photos and shared. So who did this? What was it that it actually sparked an investigation where it was both cleaned up and that person was cited for the illegal dumping.
Oh, fantastic.
Just because people stopped and said, no, this is not okay. I'm going to take a picture of it. I'm going to put it on Facebook and I'm going to tell all of my neighbors and all my friends that I think that this is not okay. And it actually, gained a lot of traction.
Wow. Okay. I love that I don't know where the conversation goes, and be decent. And then also the approach and the perspective and the sort of the point of view. Wasn't expecting it and really, really enjoying it. And as a conservationist, also so kind of going like, hey, that sparks some really interesting ideas in my head. But I also want to move on to the next photo. Good?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
And I just want to point out that obviously it's working because that's exactly what I want to do. I want to spark that thought in people's brains.
Yes. It's working.
Yes.
Okay, so the next photograph. Oh, okay. hard left or hard right. I love it.
Right?
It's a portrait of you with your fiery red hair.
Yes.
Uh, let's see, matching lipstick, wearing
Yep.
a glitter vest shirt, or maybe this shirt is just up to the top, kind of short
Hmm.
sleeved, very glittery. Very,
Yes.
yeah, very glam. Underneath is it looks like a black t-shirt with glow in the dark skeleton underneath.
That's correct.
Now, go ahead, take it away.
It's ultra femme, right? I've got my gold hair barrette. I've got a feminine pose.
Yeah.
My hair is bright red. I've
Mhm.
got some sparkles. I've got some glow.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that I'm definitely, unapologetically feminine. I think that, my main space is environmental activism, environmental advocacy. I like to stay in my lane because, you got to stay on message and all of that. But I cannot deny my experience, both as a, female small business owner in a patriarchal society and a survivor of domestic violence, right? Like I have personally had to work really, really hard to both understand and embrace really what feminine power means.
Yep.
And how it actually is not necessarily something that stands in competition to like sort of that masculine concept of power and authority and all that, but rather as an alternative.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a very intense, in addition to being an author and an advocate and, all that, I have a marketing business.
Yeah.
I,
Plug
pay several people's mortgages and provide health insurance and, all those things. And I do it with a management style that is very intentionally compassionate,
Okay.
that is very intentionally generous.
Yeah.
And, I have gotten feedback in the past that, you don't have to do things this way. Like you don't have to feel responsible and accountable to your employees, and all, it's, they have a job and they should be grateful for that. And,
Right.
And I just don't agree. I don't agree. I have developed my own leadership perspective that is based on the power of compassion and the power of empathy.
Yeah.
And I believe strongly in the business case for running an economy that way. It makes people loyal to you, and it makes people work harder for you, and it makes everyone happier and more trustworthy and more trusting. And that's really kind of the way that I try to mold my local economy.
Okay. So my interview style is very self-indulgent, in which my guest speaks and I say, oh, holy shit, I can create connections to that and then see where that leads us. Okay, so I worked with 15 years, I've worked with a very successful business owner. And together we looked at what is service. I call it service network leadership because I look at what the network is. And a huge part of our argument is, and he is super successful, right? So have you heard of DHL?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So he's one of the co-founders of DHL. So as successful as you could be, I think, in business or could expect. And his thing was really, DHL is essentially a network. It's a service network. And you didn't know I was going to say this, and I didn't know you were going to say that, what you've said, but we've talked about this idea that in a service network, you have to be decent. Now, is it just a convergence? Now, we use it outside of decentralization and everything, but we say that if you are decent and if you in a habitat where trust beats skill, your team will do better, right? Like when people trust and love and admire each other, and it's like we fight against the mentality promoted by business schools of like top down command and control, that the jerky business sort of leader or manager, more likely, not really a leader.
Yep.
And so when you say that you very consciously present a kind of leadership, a kind of vision or tenor or tone in your team that is obviously feminine, obviously caring, empathic. So we talk about the 3 C's of competence, character, and care, right? So you have to be competent, but that's the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have you have to have character so that you're trustworthy, and you have to care. So
Yeah.
how you describe your idea and approach to your business is, I am 1,000% with you on that. So I love it.
Yeah, and I can tell you that this is just something that I have learned through my direct experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I really used to believe, and I started off as a freelancer. Right. I got, I
Okay.
didn't have. I was just at sort of the top of my game in the technical writing, and regulatory compliance, and so okay, I'm just going to start being a mercenary instead of a company man.
Right.
And starting out alone and building a business where I know that today I cannot do what I do without the people who help me.
Sure.
It just provides an innate sense of appreciation for them. Like, yes, I've done it alone and it's awful doing it alone.
Right.
And I've encountered a lot of people who I personally believe allow their kind of perfectionism and their sense of control and all of these things that do help you get to the top of your industry to achieve that high level of competence. But it does not facilitate collaboration, right? They won't do it your way. They will do it their way. They have their own skills. And instead of trying to force, a round peg into a square hole, it's really a matter of communicating with people and understanding them and, seeing where the best fit is. And if there isn't a fit, then you move on mutually, understanding that, it was all good along the way, right?
Yep.
And, in terms of that top-down leadership style, I'm really, I believe that it will eventually become antiquated, only because so many people in my cohort, right? I'm 34, elder millennial, among the older millennial generation, and people in my, around me are, bailing on their high money careers because at this point, what's it worth, right?
Yeah.
Burning out 16 hours a day for a boss that yells at you is not worth the money, right? Go out and live in the middle of a county park in Hong Kong and listen to cows and love your life, right?
Compliment accepted.
Yes.
Okay. I love it. Okay, so plug your company. What's the company?
So the company is called Axiom Communications, AXIOM. We've got a couple of brands that we've been able to spun off. Again, just because I can't help myself, right? Whenever I have a new idea for a new project, I get really excited about it. And I just have to manifest it into reality.
No, I love it.
So we provide legal marketing services under the brand Colorado Legal Marketing, as well as social media services under Axiom Social.
Okay.
And then technical writing and compliance, content marketing, thought leadership under Axiom Communications. And the Be Decent project is not only like the culmination of my, right, sort of like life's work, but also a proof of concept, right? I have built myself a thought leadership platform as the owner of a marketing company to show people that you can build yourself a thought leadership platform, right? It can't be inauthentic, like it must be something that really is true to you, because simply nobody can put in the time and the energy for something sustainably, right? That is not just something that speaks to them and their heart and soul. But at the same time, it's, I think, very consistent with the way that marketing is going these days, where, okay, we're inundated by information. We don't need any more information. We can find the information that we want. It's really more so about getting to know people as an individual and finding your community. My community is environmental technology, gypsy nature lovers. Okay, like that sounds like a very small niche, but there's millions of us out there.
Yeah. I love it. Well, here's what I know, that in the audio, your energy is going to carry forward. But I'd like to also share with the listener that you're hopping on your chair and you're like, you're you're radiating this energy. And that's part of it's an important part of what I want to kind of convey through the podcast and also through my work and all this stuff, is this idea that you can sit back and be an observer, or you can sort of step forward and just go for it and just be active and just. So I'm going to I'm going to downshift a little bit, and feel free to ignore. It's not, it's not going to be a question. It's just, if there's a question, you find it and you talk about whatever you want to answer. But how you framed yourself to me was an important sort of anchor or something that was there was this concept of domestic violence and abuse that you went through, pushed through, survived through, had to process, and it probably took you that long time of living by yourself to kind of clearing that out.
Absolutely.
But in listening to you, there's that, and I understand that abuse and violence is super complex because it's got the psychological side to it that can really, take your feet out from underneath you. But listening to you now, it's almost inconceivable to me that your energy and self-possession would let somebody trample over you. You don't give me that feeling.
Yeah. And what you're picking up on is empowerment, right?
Yeah.
That's the difference between then and now, is that I have discovered self-love and self-acceptance and empowerment where, I have built not only, a brand and a presence and an actual legacy, right? If I die tomorrow, I'm going to feel good about the impact that I had on my life, my life has had on this planet. Right.
Wow.
And that's really because I had to start believing in myself at some point. All I had ever done, growing up as a good little girl is listen to what was told to me.
Right.
Do well in school. Don't date around, right? Don't date a lot of guys, right? Be very limited in, sort of your interactions on that. Get a really good job and, stay with that company. And as sound as that advice sounds, as good as that advice sounds, it was completely wrong for me. And I followed it every step of the way, just believing that eventually it would work out. But the truth of the matter is that no, every journey is individual.
Yep.
And all you really have are the gifts that you are born with and you carry forward into this world, right? And again, reflecting on sort of the generational impact, I was a senior in high school when the housing market crashed, right? So I was graduating from high school in an economy where my friends' parents were losing their houses and everyone was moving in with the grandparents.
Wow.
I graduated college in the recession that followed, where I was living in Palm Beach County at the time. My condo was literally across the river from Mar-a-Lago. You could see the top of Mar-a-Lago from the other side. I lived on the poor side, obviously, but you could look across and see the wealth. There was over 13% unemployment in that county at that time. And there was a complete hiring freeze on all public jobs, no teachers, no waste management, nothing. And so, kind of growing up and being told that you go through school, you get a great job, you get a solid, husband, wife, partner, you have a nuclear family with 2.5 children, and then you retire with a gold watch at, 25 years.
Yeah.
That all sounded like really sound advice, but it was given to me from people who had the best intentions that had no idea how to function in the new world, that had no idea how to function in this environment presently.
Sure.
And so I had to really start believing in myself. That, people might give you advice, and as tempting as that might be to give up your own autonomy to just rely on what people say, you can't, right?
Okay.
You have to really discover the power of listening to yourself and following your own beliefs. And you know what? Nobody would ever tell me. It took me 11 days to move out of Vermont.
Okay.
It took 2 bonfires, I burned a bunch of stuff, right? Old curtains and pillows and things that I couldn't get rid of at the dump or the thrift store. And it was just a solid almost 2 weeks of just getting rid of all of my possessions. I went from a 2-bedroom with a storage unit to a Jeep, literally.
Simplifying your life.
And I hit the road and I started freelancing. $40 a day would be enough to pay for the campsite and dinner. And nobody would ever tell you should do that.
Sure.
Nobody would ever give you the advice of, just, light a bonfire, burn a bunch of shit that you can't get rid of and hit the road. And, that's how you're going to start your successful career. But that's what I did. So
Shooting it raw is all about being an arsonist. No, it isn't. It's all about inspiring people.
It was a permitted bonfire.
Okay, it's fine.
I got permits for it.
Let's move on to the next photograph. This is great. This is great.
Yes.
Okay. In this photo, you're in the nice sun. You're with a. I'm assuming this is the you a bit of foreshadowing from before, but you're.
Yes.
It's a close portrait. It's a selfie because I can see your arm kind
Yep.
of reaching forward. You've got
Hmm.
a rock climbing helmet on. You've got your
Yep.
sunglasses. It's sunny. It's beautiful, and you've got a German Shepherd, and I could see on
Yes.
her muzzle there's a bit of the gray there. So
Yes.
I could just see the hint of somebody's head behind you. There's the rock face on the left. You're on a kind of cleared ground, and a little farther off in the distance, you can see a bit of a hill with some trees. It's very arid, and
Yes.
a woman and her dog. What's your dog's name?
Yes. Sissy, little
Sissy.
sister.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, as somebody who's had six dogs in his house, and they're essentially hitting old age, and we outlive our dogs, which is
Yes.
it's very intense, right? And the companionship of your pet, of your dog, is really intense because it's a very pure kind of connection. It's
Yeah.
very emotional, and then we see our dogs from pups. They go through their whatever life, adulthood, and they become seniors, and then they start losing their health and their mobility and all this stuff, and it's very tough. So after I've just dumped all this on your shoulders, why did you put this absolutely beautiful photo of you and Sissy on as in your series?
Well, obviously, anyone who owns a dog knows why there's a dog selfie in there, right? Like, there's just
Sure,
because we love our dogs, and
sure,
we just believe that our dog is the most beautiful and adorable dog there is, and
of
everyone
course,
wants to see photos of them. And
yeah,
so, my dog is the most beautiful, adorable dog there is, and everyone wants, obviously. No, well, really, because Sissy has been the one single tether that has been consistent throughout my adult life.
yeah,
I got that dog off of Craigslist out of somebody's backyard
yeah.
when I was 21 years old,
Oh wow,
right?
wow,
And she has been with me through the beginning and end of my marriage,
yeah.
through the death of a parent,
Oh wow,
through every vehicle I have owned as an adult, through every apartment I have lived in. And she has been the one thing that has been consistently there. And just as people are sentimental about things that bring them, that are a tether to the past,
sure,
she is very much my living tether.
yeah,
And yeah, she is a senior lady. She's my only child, and she's a first world doggy, so she gets the best possible medical
sure,
care.
sure,
She's like, we're gonna keep that dog up and running for as long as we possibly can. But sort of to your point, um, all things in life are passing to some
sure,
degree.
of
And
course,
there's actually, like, if you notice the tank top, I've got a little Buddhist
yeah,
on the tank top, and that one actually says, "Don't hate, meditate." Right.
yeah, right,
And as much as that's a bit of a joke, I am a practicing Buddhist. I practice Zen Buddhism,
okay,
and so there is an element of, in Buddhism, they really teach you that attachment is the heart of all suffering, right?
of course,
Because everything in life is temporary.
yep,
And when you create attachments with things, you're just setting yourself up for the pain of detachment,
sure,
right? Which is part of the
sure,
reason why I like Buddhist monks, they don't own anything, and all these
yeah,
things. But the truth of the matter is that the pain of loss is worth it
yeah,
when you have an attachment that gives you so much, right? So, yes, I have told all of my friends and everyone who knows me, because honestly, the dog has predated most of my friendships and my
sure,
relationships, outside of my mom and my sister at this point,
mm-hmm.
And, I tell everyone, like, oh, this is my senior dog. FYI, when she leaves me, I'm going to be a puddle on the floor.
Of
I will be a
course,
total
no, no,
disaster,
a mess for sure,
Yes,
for sure.
yes.
Now look,
But that's the price of love, right?
yeah, well, yeah, so again, this isn't an interview. Like it's more about the exchange of nurturing and feeding each other, right? So right now, one of my dogs is undergoing chemotherapy. And in our house, we are making the tough decision of quality of life, in which, okay, we give him the chemo, it wipes out his white blood cells. He gets sepsis, so we have to give him the antibiotics. And then you're looking at the whole, okay, the back and forth. And somebody who doesn't have a dog will be like, come on, like, who cares, whatever. But it strips down, in a way, the relationship is really stripped down, because you project your feelings onto this being that is clearly a being, clearly sentient, clearly within the world and understanding the world with its own, his or her own intelligence and sentience. And you learn from each other. You're obviously getting so much from Sissy as she's getting from you. Like, you know what I mean? Like the companionship, it goes both ways.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, you will be a mess. And I was born into a very Jewish household, and but I say that the most Jewish thing to do is to become an atheist. And the most yeah, for sure, because if you are to question authority and to question the world and to be part of the world, then of course you'd be like, hey, wait a second, why would I separate myself? And Buddhism, so I understand you. I understand how you're making sense of the world. Okay.
Yes.
Now, somebody who's listening to us and is listening to you, what would you say to them for it to make sense in their life? Just as you find meaning from Sissy and from Buddhism and being outside and connecting to the biosphere, how do you make that present for somebody else who'll be like, what are you talking about?
I would really frame that as developing the ability of living beyond yourself, right? That, sure, I go through this world in my individual existence as Samantha Joule Fow, and I interact with people in this body, which has a direct identity that has many unique and valuable perspectives and all of that. And because that is my experience, and likewise, you have that same autonomous experience, and everyone has that same autonomous experience, it's so easy to feel isolated.
Okay.
Right? Especially this day and age,
Right.
especially, like literally isolation is, a part of our lifestyle. And I think that it's really easy to kind of spiral down into loneliness and sadness and all of that, because, from an individual point of view, how much impact can one person really have, right? How much loss can one person really suffer?
Sure.
It can certainly be overwhelming. And, certainly through my extensive self-help journey, because as you said, yes, it did take me many years to recover. Like
Sure.
it was a lot of treatment, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
work to kind of overcome the impacts of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a big part of it, is that understanding that, we live in a big, wide world full of beautiful people and beautiful experiences. And as much as we have some degree of control over, okay, I want this and I don't want that, or I want to associate with myself with this or not that, or I want a dog or I want a cat or I want a kid or I don't want anything.
Mm-hmm.
Our control has limits.
Yep.
Right? Eventually you do get up against the wall of your bubble, where no matter how much you try or spend or push or anything you do, it's you can't impact the situation.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Death is one of those absolutes.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of people out there that are getting their pets cloned and trying to overcome, right?
Right.
But the truth of the matter is that it's something that exists beyond your realm of control. And there is something so beautiful about just accepting that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the beautiful things about meditation, right? That's really what you're doing in a moment of meditation, is that you are in your experience,
Right.
not in your head, right?
Okay, I know to keep things moving, I should go on to the next image, but I want to say, what can you connect between meditation, how Sissy sees the world, and what it's like to rock climb? Is there a connection?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So rock climbing was, I got into meditation through lots of things, but mostly through physical practice, right? Like, a lot of people I think struggle to rest their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And so when your body is active, you're distracted. And so like,
Sure.
I think it was a little bit easier for me to get into it, while I was doing some sort of like physical practice. And rock climbing was the first thing that I discovered where it was something where that required absolute focus.
Right.
You cannot be distracted in
Yeah.
that moment. You must focus 100% on what you are doing, or else you will actually fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you
Mm-hmm.
will, it's dangerous.
Yep.
And there is a lot, that's a substantial meditative training
Yep.
experience, right? Like, no matter what's bugging you today, no matter what weird thoughts are going through your head, you really have no choice but to put them out, because you have a challenge in front of you to scale a mountain, scale a rock,
Yep.
and gravity is working against you. And again, these are things that, right, you can't do anything about that, right?
Yep.
So you have to focus on what you're doing. And in terms of, so rock climbing has been a big part of my meditation practice, and it continues to be, like, as is dance, and as is yoga, and like, all sorts of like physical movement practices.
Nice.
And I think that, in terms of connecting it back to Sissy, this is another reason why I love animals so much, is because animals always live in the moment.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, like, sure, they also experience trauma, and they carry things, like through their lives that are impacted, from the past. But for the most part, their awareness is in that present moment.
Mm-hmm.
Sissy doesn't know, right, that she's 13 years old,
Sure.
right? Like
Sure.
she just knows that she wakes up every morning and she likes her breakfast, and she
Yep.
likes to lay out in the sunshine, and
Nice.
she likes
Yeah,
her
it's
mom.
just, yeah,
Right?
yeah. It's great.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like, instead of like, focusing on all the things that could be running through our minds, like associated with like, like all of the many things that are heavy about living, what's going on right now in
Yep.
this moment. In this moment, I'm having a lovely conversation with you, right?
Oh,
And
too
my
sweet.
lovely dog is resting, right? As are
Nice.
your pets, right?
Yep.
So all's good with the world, right?
Yes. What a beautiful way to transition to the next photograph. Shall we?
Yes.
Boom.
Speaking of physical movement practice.
So visually, it's still outside. But wait, hold on. Plug the title of your book one more time so it gets burned into people's minds.
Be Decent, Environmental Activism 2.0.
And the name of your company?
Axiom Communications, like axioms and idioms.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so the photograph. Okay, so half of the photo is sky with wispy cirrus clouds way high above, but there is a little bit of cloud cover closer to some green. Now we're looking at green hillsides off in the distance. In the foreground, which is in focus, it's grass with a bit of rock. It's way more lush than the previous images of Moab and the desert and everything. And what creates the image, and look, it is both. It's just a snap. It's a snapshot. Yet aesthetically, what it is of you. I'm assuming that's you doing what could be a handstand with legs open wide to the sky. So your body creates a Y, basically, with your feet, the arms of the Y, and your arms basically the base. And talk to us about handstands and Ys and why this photo. I love it.
Well, I will say that my life these days involves a lot of cartwheels and handstands and somersaults and giggling.
You're bonkers.
And
I love it.
ecstatic. Exactly. Bonkers indeed, because of the importance of discovering joy and finding joy.
Nice.
I like the example of handstands and cartwheels, because I remember when I was 6 years old, handstands and cartwheels were like a priority.
Sure.
The play was a priority. When did we stop playing? When did we stop getting out and laughing and rolling in the grass and falling down? Who convinced us that that's no longer fun? Because it's a ton of fun. Okay. Like, go out and try it. So that exact photograph is actually on the top of Mount Alyeska in Alyeska, Alaska.
Oh, wow.
I hiked it. Yeah, I hiked it. It's I can't tell you exactly how long the hike is, but it's at the Alyeska ski resort and they have a gondola. So
Okay.
if you have to pay on the way up for the gondola, but if you hike the way up the mountain, they let you ride the gondola down for free.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
like, yeah,
Sure.
like
Sure.
hike like 3.5 miles or whatever up the mountain. And
Nice.
at the top, like there's all sorts of pictures of me, like doing like big jumps and cartwheels and all these things, even though I just climbed a mountain,
That's great.
because it's
Yep.
fun.
Yep.
And like, discover joy, people.
I
Like,
love it.
it is all around you.
Yeah.
You just have to find it, and your exact flavor of joy is unique to you.
Yep.
And so, as hysterical as it sounds for me to be, sort of like unapologetically bonkers about a 34-year-old who loves to do cartwheels
It's
and
great.
desperately works to improve their handstands, it's fun, right?
So
Go have fun.
let me make a connection to that. So I've done years of Muay Thai. I've years and years of. I
Mhm.
like to say that I'm a beginner with 25 years of experience. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm all about physical fitness and all, and being outside and doing that stuff. But very recently, to kind of get outside of my, just to try something different and completely new, I've done started Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and
Mhm.
so I'm a total. It's very humbling because I'm useless and a total white belt, whatever. And one of the exercises, which is hilarious because I'm in the adult class, whatever. So they're about like 5 to 10 guys, who are all fit and everything. And cognitively, it's really fascinating where I can do handstands and I can do cartwheels pretty well. I have a good
Mhm.
sense of that. But then one of the things was, okay, do a reverse cartwheel. So if you normally do a cartwheel with your left hand leading,
Yeah.
now do it with your right hand leading. And it feels totally off. And
Mhm.
everyone's awkward. And it's just hilarious to watch. Which,
Yes.
so to you, I would say, well, you know what? If you normally do cartwheels one side, try to master cartwheels on the other side. I don't know. Are you a cartwheel queen? I don't know.
Oh my God. Yeah, I could definitely hang with the best of them on
I'm
the
throwing
cartwheels.
it
I
down.
do. I will
You have to
say.
send me a
Yes.
video of you doing a cartwheel from
Yes.
both sides.
I will. I will. And you'll be mad impressed. Well, I think that, sort of to your point, we get so much into our heads that we lose our connections with our bodies,
Yep.
right? We get so used to a certain physical practice, whether it's just, getting up and making breakfast and going to the office and coming home, and
Yeah.
that our bodies will literally forget it's their full range of abilities,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we're doing that to ourselves. We're imposing those limitations on ourselves.
Yep.
I'm a big advocate for the mind body connection because it's something that has really helped me a lot in terms of my own sort of like emotional and mental healing.
For sure.
But also because, as a cautionary tale, your body will turn on you,
Yep.
right? If
Yep.
you don't treat it properly, eventually
Sure.
it will break down. And
It just will. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And, whether that is because you are not taking care of your stress and you are overstressed, whether that is because you are not taking care of your nutritional needs or your physical needs or your emotional needs, your mind and your body are partners.
Sure.
And if you push your body too hard, if your mind pushes your body too hard, eventually your body will pack its bags and
Sure.
give up on you.
Sure.
So I really do encourage people to move,
Yep.
feel every nerve, feel every muscle, feel what the sunlight feels like on your skin, and
Yeah.
have those moments of being in your body and checking in with your body, and, just taking care of it and being grateful because, it does a lot for you. So we can spend a little bit of time doing something for it, right?
I like that you exclaimed, be joyous.
Yes.
I can't say enough. We're speaking the same language. You know what I mean? It's like you
Totally.
and me, we're totally speaking the same freaking language. I love it. I fucking love it. It's great.
Yes. Yes. Totally. Totally.
Samantha Joule Fow. Joule, it's like, it's not an accident. You're high energy.
Oh,
It's in your
yeah.
name. Like my name Ran means joy, joyfulness.
Hmm.
So this has been all really, sometimes I have to ask at the end or towards whatever, say, look, what can we say to inspire a listener? But I hear and feel inspiration just coming out of your pores, right? So one of the things that occurred to me was that as a business owner, like I can feel the authenticity of you saying, well, I can create a business where people earn a livelihood, where being decent and being caring and being, is part of the culture.
Yep.
So I'm going to shut up now. We've been talking for more than an hour, and I'm going to let you finish by saying what you think is important.
Oh gosh. Well, there's obviously a long list of things that I think is important, but if I'm really leaving with one single message, it is the importance of personal empowerment. I have really found my own way
Yeah.
in my own space because I spent time and energy and intention discovering myself
Wow.
instead of listening to all of the messages that I had been taught to believe.
Mm-hmm.
Really sitting and parsing out, okay, is this really me? Is this
Yep.
really what I think? Or have I just been, for some reason or another, convinced to believe this? And that's really what has opened up doors for me. Being authentic really requires, courageous self-love and, an element of fearless self-discovery. And it's hard, but it's really worth it. So as much as it would be odd for an environmental advocate to not be like, and stop climate change, no, that's really what I say. It's like, regardless of whether my message resonates with you or somebody else's or something else's, that's something that I really believe everyone needs to internalize.
Hallelujah. Thank you. Sam, thank you. This is such a gift. Thank you so much. You're awesome.
Yes, likewise. Thank you, Ron. I have had so much fun. I am so glad to be a guest. I look forward to any and all opportunities to collaborate in the future. Please do send me your materials and service leadership, and don't think that you're not going to get a cartwheel video because I will.
No, I want to see it. No, both left and right.
Oh, you'll see it. It'll be beautiful. Okay.
You're awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting